Welcome to another edition of Saturday Sit Down, where we catch up with former Lethbridge Hurricanes. This week we go to Ladysmith on Vancouver Island, a beautiful part of the world, where we find Kaleb Toth. And Caleb, how has life been treating you on Vancouver Island through a pandemic and everything we've been going through right now?
Well, it's if you're gonna have a pandemic somewhere, why not the island? It's a beautiful place to live. There's lots of safe distance activities you can do. Lots of hiking. Mountains, the water. It's a great place to live.
What is Kaleb Toth up to these days, personally, professionally?
I got my hand in a little bit of everything. I work two jobs. I coach. I'm an assistant coach for the Vancouver Warriors. I coach 3 minor teams. All my kids play, so I coach their lacrosse teams. I recently coached the Senior A Timbermen. So I've been, just working and volunteering my time and trying to get back to the sport.
Well, I love the story about you playing in the Western Hockey League as a hockey player, of course, and then the transition to professional lacrosse. We'll talk about the WHL first. You were drafted by the Prince Albert Raiders in the first round back in 1992, pretty early on in the existence of the Bantam Draft. What do you remember from that time, and what did you know about the WHL?
I didn't know too much. I remember, I think I was 14 at the time. I remember my dad called me and said I got drafted, and I was kind of like, well, what do you mean I got drafted? What, drafted to what? And so I went to my first training camp at 16. It was a good experience. I didn't make it until I was 17. Got called up for a few games when I was 16, but made it as a 17-year-old, and just continued to play hockey. But in the summers, I'd always come back to Calgary and play lacrosse. And then when I got a little bit older, into my later teens, in the summertime, I'd go out to BC and play lacrosse. So wouldn't really stay too much at home with my parents. I'd be gone in the wintertime playing hockey, and then gone in the summer playing lacrosse.
Talk about the experience in Prince Albert. I've been there as an away broadcaster in that rink, the Art Hauser. I mean, it's got so much history to it. What was it like being a member of the Raiders and a member of the Prince Albert community for a couple of years?
It was good. Prince Albert, they love their hockey. Fans were great. School was a little different. It's tough for teenagers to leave all their friends and leave everything they know to go to another school and another community and live with other parents. It is difficult on a lot of kids. Myself, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I had great billets in Prince Albert. They were awesome to me. My parents basically told them, ask Caleb to do stuff. If you need chores done, he'll do it. Because if he doesn't do it, just call me and I'll make sure he gets it done. So it was good. I had great billets in Prince Albert. I had great ones in Moose Jaw, and I had great ones in Lethbridge as well.
You have a unique distinction, and I don't know if a lot of players would have done this, but play for 3 different community-owned teams. You go from Prince Albert to Moose Jaw. What was the Moose Jaw experience like? Of course, the crushed can back in your day.
It was good. When I got traded to Moose Jaw, I was out of school. So, it was just finding stuff to do during the day. And there was a couple of us, and we'd just meet at the rink and go for workouts or go shoot the puck around, or, go hang out and then watch some TV. The video games wasn't as popular back then as it is now. So we didn't get a lot of that. But, it was more just hanging out with the guys and having a good time. And I really enjoyed my time in Prince Albert, and I really enjoyed my time in Moose Jaw. Lethbridge, it was so short. I was only there for a couple months that I didn't really get a chance to get involved with the community and do those kind of charity events that the junior hockey teams do. But I remember, Lethbridge being a great place to play, and the rink was awesome. I really liked Lethbridge's rink.
You, as a Warrior, play the 97 playoffs against the Lethbridge Hurricanes, who would go on to win the championship. What do you remember about that series and that Hurricanes team, which was pretty star-studded?
I remember it was a rough series. I remember Reed Lowe and Dale Parrington, I think, fought every single game. It was good. It was good hockey. It wasn't as slow as people thought that hockey was back then, with all the holding and that. It was physical. There was fights and there was goal scoring. It was very entertaining hockey. And anytime you play playoff hockey, it brings the best out of both teams. And we fell short that year, but it was a good we beat Brandon in the first round and then lost to Lethbridge, and you don't mind losing to a team that goes on and wins the league. So it was an okay experience to lose to them, but it's still, you still wouldn't like to win.
Fast forward a year later, and you mentioned you get traded to Lethbridge and played but 21 games in the regular season. It was a short tenure, but a pretty successful tenure for you, 24 points in those 21 games. How exciting was it for you to be traded to the defending champs?
It was really good. My family's from Calgary, so they got to come to all the home games, and any game that we played in Alberta, they drove up to. So that was nice to be able to see them and play in front of them. When you're in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, they don't get out too often, or Moose Jaw for that matter. But whenever you're in an Alberta team and you live in Alberta, your parents usually come see you, and it was nice to have that kind of support. I think maybe that was one of the reasons why, I had success, is I had that support right away. And it wasn't just that. It was, friends too. I got to see high school friends that I hadn't seen in a while now were coming out and watching me play. So it was pretty exciting. And when you get a big fan base coming out to watch you want to put on a show. So you got to try your best. So that's what I did. And luckily I had some success.
Yeah, talk about that. You go from small market Prince Albert, small market Moose Jaw, and great hockey towns, great hockey rinks in the Crush Can and the Art Hauser. Now you come to Lethbridge and back then the Sportsplex, pretty big arena compared to the other two, a pretty crazed hockey town in itself. How much fun did you have playing as a Lethbridge Hurricane?
I had a lot of fun. We had a really good group of guys. The rink, I just loved playing in that rink. It was one of the bigger ones in junior, and it seemed like the fans were all behind you, and you had the curtain at the one end, so you couldn't go all the way around. So it was good. It was an entertaining rink, and I really enjoyed playing there. We had a nice dressing room too, and I remember the one story was I remember going in for a game one day or one afternoon, and everyone's jersey was hanging up, and I went to the trainer and I said, "Hey, where's my jersey?" And he's like, "What are you talking about? I put it in your stall." I was like, "There's no jersey. Like, did I get traded? Am I not playing today?" And he's like, "No." And he goes to my stall and he's like, "Where the hell's your jersey?" Well, it ended up that someone had come into the rink and stole my jersey out of the stall. So I had to wear somebody else's jersey with, or I had to wear just a plain jersey. I can't even remember what number it was. But then they ended up finding a guy wearing my jersey at the grocery store a couple days later. And someone confronted him and said, "Hey, where'd you get that jersey?" And he's like, "Oh, a friend gave it to me." And he's like, "Oh, come on, give it back." So I ended up getting it back, but the tie down was actually cut off.
Oh my goodness, that's a great story. You mentioned a short time as a Lethbridge Hurricane, but do you keep in touch with any of those guys on that team? I know Mark Smith was on that team. Was Shane Willis, I think, was on that team. Do you keep in touch with any of those guys?
No, I haven't seen any of those guys for a long time. Dale Parrington, the odd time, he wasn't on the team there, but we were friends in Calgary, grew up playing together. So the odd time I'll run into him. But, when you're living in Ladysmith, a little small town in British Columbia, you're not going to run into too many guys out here.
Yeah, that's fair. I know Dale's in Duncan, or kind of lower down the island there, not too far from you. We've had him on. What a character he is. You go, yeah, understatement probably.
Yeah.
You go on to play 1 year of professional hockey in the East Coast League. What was that experience like for you before you transitioned to lacrosse?
It was good. I started out in Baton Rouge. I, enjoyed it out there. It was a little different. First time I ate alligator. Only played, I think I only played 15 or 20 games and then got traded to the Chesapeake Icebreakers. Had a fairly good year. It seemed like I just didn't get any breaks. I ended up getting Rookie of the Year for the team, but I had heard that I got called up to the IHL. Some guys came down from Cleveland and they said, "Hey, where were you?" And I was, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Oh, we called you up and we had your jersey installed and everything." And I was like, "What are you guys talking about?" So I went and asked our coach, and he said, "Yeah, but he couldn't let me go because we had too many guys that were injured." So, that kind of put the straw on the horse's back, or the camel's back for me kind of losing interest in playing hockey. And it just seemed like I never got those breaks. I never got drafted. I got some free agent tryouts, but just nothing ever panned of it. And I'm not gonna say I was a great hockey player, but I was a decent hockey player. And I thought I could have had a couple more tryouts and possibly could have played in the American League or in the IHL back then. But those are the breaks. And I ended up falling back on lacrosse, which, was really fortunate for me. I had a really good lacrosse career, and I wouldn't change that for nothing.
I want to ask you about playing lacrosse. You mentioned earlier you'd play hockey in the winter and lacrosse in the summer. How were you able to manage both of those at pretty elite levels?
It was pretty simple. The only thing that I didn't do was I never got a chance to really skate in the summertime because I was always playing lacrosse. I was in good physical shape, but I didn't have my skating legs. So every time I came back to training camp, the first 2 weeks were pretty tough on me because, I would just bag myself. Like after practice, I'd stay out and skate just because I felt that I was a step behind everybody that had, the opportunity to skate. Wind-wise, I was okay, but, running and skating are two different things. So it was always, tough to get back into skating mode. I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed playing hockey. I enjoyed playing lacrosse, and, I just made it work. I remember, I think the 1 year when I was playing in Moose Jaw, Al Tura was our coach, and he didn't want me to play lacrosse. And, I kind of had a talk with him, and I said, hey, that's what I do in the summer. You can't tell somebody that they can't go water skiing, if that's what they do in the summer, because I play lacrosse in the summer. And, his biggest thing was he didn't want me to get hurt. And, my thing was, I had more injuries playing hockey than I ever did playing lacrosse. So, it's one of those things where, you just take care of yourself, and it's like anything else. You can get hurt, but, fortunately I didn't. So it worked out both ways.
You mentioned that you weren't drafted in the NHL. You were drafted in the NLL, the National Lacrosse League, second overall by the Toronto Rock. How gratifying was it to be drafted pretty darn high by a professional league after kind of going through what you did in the hockey circuit?
You know what? It was great. I hadn't really given professional lacrosse, too much of a thought. It was always, hockey, and I'd play some of lacrosse, but I never played lacrosse in the wintertime. It was always hockey time. So when I got drafted, I remember that was the first year that I played in the East Coast. John Meridian was the GM at the time of Toronto. He called me and he said, we drafted you. We want you to come out and play. I know you're playing hockey, but there's a couple states teams that we play that we would like you to come out, and if you can play, you can play. So I asked the coach, and he said, no way. Like it was Chris Nyland at the time, and Chris Nyland said, there's no way you're leaving, us to go play another sport. What if you get hurt or something? And I understand it, and I made my commitment to hockey at the time, so I had to tell the Toronto Rock that I couldn't play that season, and it was unfortunate because they ended up winning the championship that year. But the next year I went over and played, and we had a good run, and we ended up winning the championship again. So it was good. I definitely enjoyed playing for Toronto.
You did win the championship in 2000 with the Toronto Rock, and don't believe everything you see on Wikipedia, but on your Wikipedia page, it says that you scored the championship-winning goal, which happened to be the last professional goal ever scored at Maple Leaf Gardens. I guess, first off, what was it like playing at Maple Leaf Gardens? And what is it like having that distinction as the last professional goal scorer in that building?
Well, let's start with Maple Leaf Gardens. It is just an amazing arena. If it's the atmosphere in there, summertime, Ontario, no air conditioning, humid, like everyone was just sweating. It was just like absolutely amazing. It was such a great atmosphere. And it was sold out. Like I think most of the games in the Gardens were sold out. So you got 15,000 people yelling, cheering. It was just an unreal experience. And to have to be the person that scored the last goal at Maple Leaf Gardens, it's an honor. I don't think about it too often. I think about the championship and the winning it with that group of guys. And you try not to think of the accolades, but that is one thing that I have on my resume that no one can take away from me.
No one else in the world has that distinction. You win in 2000 with the Rock, and then you get traded as part of the expansion with the Calgary Roughnecks. You're from Calgary. You're playing professionally. What was it like? I imagine it was a pretty big homecoming for you and all your family and friends to now be a member of the Roughnecks.
Yeah, it was. When Calgary got awarded the franchise, I had went to Johnny and Les Bartley at the time. Les Bartley was the head coach, and Johnny Meridian was the GM. And I'd asked them to make a deal work if they could. I told them that I would definitely come back and play for the Rock if there wasn't a deal to be made. But I felt it was very important for me to go back to Calgary and try to help start that franchise take off. And, lacrosse, when I was growing up in Calgary, it wasn't huge. There was, maybe 200, 300 kids that played it. Now Calgary is one of the biggest, not franchises, but biggest communities that play lacrosse in Canada. It's growing huge. And, I like to think that I was a little bit a part of that, but yeah, it was just really important for me to personally go back to Calgary and to try to, grow the game, in the city that I grew up in.
11 years as a Roughneck, championships in 2004 and 2009. How did those differ from the one in Toronto, being that it was for your hometown team, and having been there from its infancy and developing it through?
Yeah, the first championship in Calgary was great. We were an expansion team. It was our third year in the league. No one really expected us to win. We just got hot at the right time. I think our record was 9-6, which, just basically put us in the playoffs. We went on a winning streak before we got to the playoffs, and we just got really hot. Everyone was playing great. Goaltending was playing well. And then we just happened to host the game in Calgary, which kind of turned out to be a fluke because Buffalo was, the last seeded team in the East, and we were the last seeded team in the West. But we just happened to have one more point than them, so we got to host the championship games. So it was quite an experience. Having the Saddledome 19,000 plus sold out, cheering us on, and yeah, it was quite an experience. And to be able to win it in your hometown, it's just an amazing experience. And we had a real good team, a real good group of guys. In 2009, I think we were the favorites to win. We had a really good team. We finished with a really good record. The championship game, all three championship games I played in were just entertaining. None of them were blowouts. They were all, real close game, 1-2 goal games. And that's what you want in a championship. You don't want someone getting blown out. You want it to be nice and close. You want the guys to battle and want to get that win. And all three of them were great, 1-2 goal games.
You mentioned earlier on that you're coaching now, head coach of the Nanaimo Timbermen and the Western Lacrosse Association, and an assistant coach with the Vancouver Warriors in the NLL. Your coach early on in your Calgary tenure was Chris Hall, and anyone who follows lacrosse knows that Chris was a very well-renowned guy in the sport. I know we lost him a couple of years ago to cancer. What did he mean to you as a player then, and do you take what you learned from him now as a coach?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. Chris was he was coaching me for a long time. He coached me in Calgary, coached me in Victoria. We became friends, so it wasn't just a coach player thing. It was a friendship as well. And I took a lot of things that he said to heart. And, if I was playing bad, he'd be the first one to call me out on it. And so a head coach should. So, it was good. We had a good relationship that way. But I take little things from every single coach that I have. I've had so many great lacrosse coaches in my career that, if I were to ignore what they taught me and not try to emulate all of them, then I wouldn't be a good coach. And, you got to take your experiences, and you got to, take the good and the bad and try to, adjust and teach, kids on, how to properly do stuff. And I know the one thing that I had a hard time is, I had some coaches that were yellers and screamers. And so the first year that I coached in Nanaimo, we didn't have a good record, and I tended to yell and scream a little bit more and, realize that the generation has changed with players. When I was a kid, if the coach yelled and screamed at you, you got up and you did something about it. You didn't, sulk, you didn't get upset. You basically went out and worked harder because the coach just called you out. Nowadays, you gotta massage egos. You gotta, you gotta be, gentle with everything. You can't, belittle anybody like we did. I remember when I was in Prince Albert, one practice, the coach stopped it during the middle of practice, looked at me, said, "Holy F, Caleb, I'm going to bring a video camera out here just to tape you to show you how stupid you look." Right. And so everyone, was laughing and all that. And it took it to heart. I didn't get upset. It was okay. I apparently have to work a lot harder. So it was, one of those things where I got motivated in one way where, nowadays people don't get motivated the same. So you have to adjust with your players, and you gotta, like I said, you gotta massage a lot of egos.
How do you like coaching? Because you see professional athletes, be it hockey, football, lacrosse, turn to coaching. How has that adjustment work for you? And do you kind of get that same competitive juices out of you coaching as you did as a player?
Yeah, I do. It's the one thing about coaching is I love the game of lacrosse, so I want to give back as much as possible, and that's why I think it's important that like I help coach my kids' teams, and I coach other minor teams if they need help. If they need me to run a practice, I go out and I help other coaches, in the minor association with stuff, because I've been around. I played the game since I was 3 years old, so I know a little bit about lacrosse. So it's nice to be able to kind of give back and try to give back. But yeah, for when you're an athlete and you play sports for a long time, when you stop playing, you lose something. Like there's a little bit of an emptiness that you got to try to fill, and I filled it by coaching, and that gets my adrenaline going, and it fires me up, and being able to also teach and strategize and do all that kind of stuff is great. The one thing that frustrates you though is you sit there and you tell someone to do something because you've done it 100 times, or it's happened to you 100 times, and then they completely do the opposite, and you're just like, I've been there, guys. I've been there. Trust me, it's happened to me, or I've done it. Just trust me, this is what's going to happen. So that's the only frustrating part.
I guess the last thought, Caleb, before I let you go, you're a two-sport athlete. You played hockey at a really high level, professional hockey, and lacrosse at a really high level in the National Lacrosse League. What do you say about the parents now who want their kids to only focus on one sport? How important do you think it is to develop those skills and be a multi-sport athlete and focus on a bigger array of things, especially when they're younger?
You know what? I think it's very important to become a multi-sport athlete. You learn different skills by playing lacrosse than you would hockey, by playing soccer, by doing anything. I personally, think the one sport athletes, especially when you're 8 to 15, right? That's when you should be playing everything, having fun, seeing what you enjoy, seeing what you're good at, seeing what your skills go. Like my son, for instance, he played hockey a couple years, decided he didn't want to play hockey. So I didn't force him into playing hockey. And, last year, amidst the pandemic, he actually said, you know what, I want to try hockey again. So we were going to put him in, but now with the whole pandemic thing going on, we decided not to put him in because he's a little asthmatic. So we wanted to make sure that he was okay. And this kind of got settled before he went back to, being around a bunch of kids and that kind of stuff. But it's one of those things where, I've signed him up for mountain biking. I've signed him up for, swimming, for golf, like whatever he decides to do. Says, hey, I want to try that. I say, sure, let's do it. Let's see if you like it.
That's awesome. Basically, that's all I have to ask for you. Really appreciate your time. Jealous of your backdrop this evening. And hopefully you and your family stay safe and healthy, and continued success professionally and personally, Caleb. Thanks for this.
Well, hey, no worries at all. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, there's Kaleb Toth on another edition of a Saturday Sit Down. We hope you enjoyed it.